That's what Canadians received from this Prime Minister. He promised them low interest rates for long. He said debt was without consequence and that the budget would balance itself. None of those things came true, and interest rates are now 19 times higher than they were a year ago. Wow. The Governor of the Bank of Canada, the former Liberal Finance Minister, countless other experts agree that the Prime Minister's deficits are ballooning inflation and therefore interest rates. Families have to plan their finances. So will he indicate how much will the average family see their monthly mortgage payments go up over the next 3 years? How much?
Good day, brothers and sisters. And today you tuned in into one of them shows where we're really going to be talking about our fearless leader, Justin Trudeau. And he is no way a leader. And we all know here he is a World Economic Forums and BlackRock's, Larry Finks and Vanguards and I don't even know the lineup of people that he kneels to and does other gay stuff. I have no idea. It's probably never ending. But that's the reason why he is LGBTQ leader of the world, because he is sucking everybody else's things except serving his people who elected him, supposedly. So welcome to the Alex Sass Show here at the Glen Zone with Glenn Herring, and today never-ending guest, Rome. I don't know why I introduced you that way. Guys, we're going to talk about Trudeau and his economic policies and the thing that he got into with Pierre Poilievre at a few days ago in the Parliament Hill. And we're going to talk about economy is stupid in Canada. And it is very stupid. And you're probably feeling it. And you're like, how come people that are in charge are so stupid? Because I'm feeling stupid for them. But now you're also feeling sad because to pump your gas and buy your groceries are very expensive. And we're going to tell you why. So welcome back to Alex Sass Show. Glenn, what's up?
Oh, pretty good. It's going to be a good show today. Lots to rip. You said our fearless leader. I think he's fearful. He's fearful of the people that are controlling him. He doesn't work for us. But soon the people are going to wake up and realize, he's been doing wrong, and he's going to fear us too. So there's no way for him to hide.
So we are going to get straight to the video, but I'm just going to ask Rome here. Rome, when did you ever had respect for this guy, or when did you lose it, if you had any?
Good question. I was introduced to him by his father, people who knew his father and appreciated him. I don't know him. I have nothing for him, and I'm at a point right now where I don't have a leader. So
I think all of us in this room feel the same way about Canada being leaderless right now. So let's watch our possibly next fearless leader, Pierre Poilievre, arguing with the current one regarding the state of the things here in Canada.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Oh, man.
Mr. Speaker, while the Bank of Canada continues to do its job to drive down inflation, which is going down, we will continue to do our job to be there to support Canadians.
Glenn, which part of the inflation is going down?
Well, he's going to start killing the jobs. I don't know what type of inflation he's talking about. We know that the government numbers are all fictitious. They're all fake, phony, and false, and they're engineered just to try and make things look good to stay with the narrative. But no, what they're going to do by raising the interest rates is they're going to really slow down or come close to collapsing the economy. There's going to be no soft landing in Canada, brother.
Is it done for a reason because they really want to sell it to the Trudeau's handlers? Because somebody's going to come in and buy it, cents on the dollar.
Yeah, that's the game plan of this government, is to look like they're doing everything they can for the people to try to help them and protect them, like giving them money out to help them pay their cost of living expenses, which are continuously going up. But you have to ask, well, where did this money come from? Because they don't balance the budgets, so it doesn't come from the taxpayer. It comes from printed more dollars, more debt. More debt created in the system creates more inflation. So it's a never-ending circle. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and it's ensnaring more and more people.
All right, let's keep watching the video.
Canadians who need it, with investments in things like dental care, in a grocery rebate, in supports for low.
A grocery rebate was what, $300? That's one-time shopping. And if the God forbid you have little kids and you got diapers or something like this, that's half of the grocery bill right there.
And who is the government to pick who's supposed to get the money? And like, they're the ones who are causing the problem. And then it makes it look like they're the heroes. And they're coming, oh, we're going to help these people. We're going to help this person because they can't. You know, everybody will accept an extra $300 just out of the blue like that. But when you understand where this money is coming from, you're going to pay it in the form of inflation anyways. So, you know, two wrongs do not make a right.
I got a story. Really quickly, somebody I know is taking a class, adult education, post-education, business school. And they filed for financial aid, which is all of the Canadians entitled to when you go to school. It's your money that's allocated to you to improve yourself. The same way when the immigrants come, a socialist structure gives them some money to settle and get education. You also, as a Canadian citizen, have that. A little bit less than immigrants, but as a Canadian citizen, nevertheless, you have that. So my friend, he got the grant, maybe like not a grant, actual aid. And out of $7,000, maybe $6,000 was the aid, and $1,000 was the $1,000 was a grant. That's something you have to return sometime in the future. No interest, which is a good deal, you know, for the class you take on the weekends. And then later they reassessed the situation, and because he's self-employed, and they looked at how much money he made and walk away with clean, which was $2,500 for a year. They said, you have enough, you don't need any more, so we're taking your aid back. After he went to the school and the school was over. That's a theft. Can you try to do this to somebody else, Glenn? Let's watch this.
Low-income renters and the kinds of things that conservatives would be cutting instead. Canadians are hurting, and the conservatives' answer is cuts to programs, cuts to supports for families, cuts to Canadians at a time.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to say that in 2015, when the bird here got elected, there was virtually very little government debt from all the conservative policies. But in the 8 years now that him and his group have been running the Hell House, they couldn't balance a budget if they had a little candy store. How would they be able to balance a budget on a whole country of Canada, the second largest country in the world? Not only that, now the debt has ballooned. You know, it's like getting close to $1.5 trillion. I mean, maybe that's not too much for a place like United States of America, but that's some serious coin for Canadians. And to put that into context, that's the equivalent of debt of 81,000 Canadian dollars for every Canadian household. How are we going to cover that?
Nightmare.
They need it. Austerity is not the answer, Mr. Speaker. Responsible fiscal approach is. That's exactly what we're doing by supporting Canadians who need it.
He just said everything you just said, Glenn. You know nothing, because that's a responsible fiscal approach. Let's just have as many programs as we can and throw it out there, and just, you know, hoping somehow the economy will resolve itself and budget will budget itself. That's what you said.
Leader of the opposition.
Actually, austerity is exactly what Canadians are feeling in their household budgets today, while the government budgets overflow with abundance. Mr. Speaker, there's already been a 16% year-over-year increase in the number of Canadians missing their mortgage payments. After 8 years of this Prime Minister, we have the highest household debt in the entire G7. Household debt is now 7% higher than our entire GDP, Mr. Speaker. And now his inflationary deficits are shooting up interest rates. So how much will the average family have to plan to pay more in mortgage payments per month?
But Glenn, what you say is well, what I say too, and I'm wrong, you can agree or disagree, that is by design. Like every element that he just described, that is part of this economy of greatest, like you said, second biggest country in the world with enormous amount of potential through the resources itself and manufacturing sector, which is so and closest to the biggest consuming economy in the world, which is the United States. And that's the place we'll find this in. That's not by accident. It's intentionally driven to that.
The amount of natural resources that Canada has in its vast landscape, and there's only 40 million people who live here. So the GDP per capita should be amongst the highest, but the debt per capita is amongst the highest in the OECD countries presently, and they say it's going to get worse over the next 30 years if we keep going with this neoliberalist style trajectory.
Well, it's also pays for the transgender surgeries too. Don't forget about that. That's important. That's the important thing for economy.
Honorable Prime Minister.
I hate the fact that he calls him Honorable Prime Minister. Can you just call him Justin?
Straight, Mr. Speaker. Canada has the best debt to GDP ratio.
Oh my God, Glenn, you just read. You haven't seen that speech, right? That's crazy. He just takes it out of your mouth. But in reverse, that's gaslighting. This is, brothers and sisters, this is the perfect example where Trudeau, our fearless, frightened leader, gaslighting.
In the G7, we have the lowest deficit.
AAA credit rating.
But the leader of the opposition wants us to do far less to support Canadians who need it right now. That's exactly backwards, Mr. Speaker. His pursuit of ideological gains is hurting Canadians. We are going to continue to be there in responsible, targeted ways, keeping our fiscal responsibility at the center of what we do.
I just cut the penis off. I'm literally going back to that. Everything I'm hearing that's coming out of your mouth. Oh, we're doing it for our citizens. They need this. They need more money for transgender surgeries. It's literally all I'm hearing him say, because he's not really. There's nothing. And again, I'm not just trying to be funny, but he's not addressing the issue here. He's talking over. He's just trying to be loud. And look at the picture exactly where it's fitting. Quite literally, it's fitting for what he is and what he represents. He's an open mouth.
The dishonorable prime minister here, I had to put that in because he pushes the LGBTQ, and he really puts the Q in that community. And this guy, he lies like a cheap rug, and he just covers up one problem after another, and he gets away with it because the media is on his side, and the attention span of the average Canadian, well, they can't be bothered to really know what's going on, but they will when they start feeling it, and they're going to start very soon.
All right, let's watch that.
While we support Canadians in targeted, non-inflationary...
He actually thinks he's doing a better job than what Pierre could.
Hear, hear. Well, leader of the opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it's not just me anymore pointing out that deficits drive
It's
inflation.
Mr. Sunshine Baby.
It's Liberals. It's the former Liberal finance minister, John Manley, who said that the Liberal deficits are a bit like driving your car with one foot on the gas and the other on the brake, generally, especially if there's slushy conditions under your tires, end quote. He's pointing out that this Prime Minister presses his foot on the inflationary gas pedal while the Bank of Canada has to press on the brakes. The engine is eventually going to blow. We know Canadians cannot pay their bills. Will the Prime Minister be honest to...
It's interesting how he put the blow in it.
Yeah, he was talking about the economic engine that's going to explode.
Yeah.
Yes. Canada, with its natural resource, I'll give you an example. We're ranked the top 3 in the world for oil reserves in the ground. Okay. But this guy, he doesn't want that to go to market. He wants to be environmentally a friendly person. Just a little bit of a caveat. The most environmental friendly nation, they say, on earth right now is Norway. Okay, Norway is where they have the highest amount of electric cars, for example, per capita. Okay, but they're funding all this by their oil exports to the other countries. The hypocrisy. And why don't we just do what Norway does? Why don't we fund our transition over to a more environmental friendly economy with all the oil that we have here? No, it's because we've been set up here in Canada for a failure.
I have an answer to that, and actually that's what we're going to play in just in a few minutes, brothers and sisters. Chrystia Freeland has an answer to your question. How come we don't do what the Norway does? And because it is an external factor. Let's just watch a little bit of more of this video because Justin apparently is going to freak out.
And tell Canadians how much their mortgage payments will go up because of these rate hikes.
The only thing blowing is jag meat to Trudeau.
Let's use a specific example of what the Leader of the Opposition calls inflationary spending. We made a decision that kids under 12 in this country shouldn't have to pay for dental care. Their families should be able to send them to the dentists. Well, Mr. Speaker,
I think that I got to see that dental care bill because somewhere in the dental care bill there's also gender reassignment surgery for the children under 12. It's got to be. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure it is.
The Conservative politicians who all have access to dental care through the House of Commons supports for their kids.
Of course they do.
Don't think Canadians who can't afford to send their kids to the dentist should be doing.
I think Canadians whose monthly mortgage bill will go by several $1,000s rather pay for their own dental versus increase on the mortgage. The math doesn't line up. You're going to pay $2 extra $1,000 on your mortgage for your house plus insurance, etc., etc. And then, okay, dentist is not cheap in Canada, but you know, even if you go for the most expensive procedure with your kid, it's not going to be more than $2,000 one-time expenditure. Justin, you dickhead.
Doing that, and they say that's inflationary. Mr. Speaker, that approach around cuts and austerity is not what Canadians need.
Speaker, we don't need another drama performance. Because at the end of the day, when theatrics collides with mathematics, the math always wins. And after 8 years of this Prime Minister, the Canadians have a stock of combined debt that is bigger than our entire GDP. In fact, we are the most indebted families of any country in the G7. The IMF says that Canada is the #1 at-risk country for mass mortgage defaults. Will he reverse his inflationary and high interest rate policies before people go broke?
Honorable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I've answered this question a few times, but the Leader of the Opposition continues to ask it because he refuses to go outside and see what is actually happening in Canada. Forest fires are raging. It's the worst year on record for forest fires.
Well, brothers and sisters, if you watched any of our previous videos, he started it. He actually literally gaslit the forests so he can gaslight the parliament.
And homeless people everywhere, and now food insecurity. Families have to cut back, and whatever they have left over for something sustenance like food, even that now is giving them nervous ideas.
Okay, I haven't seen the rest of this video. What are the chances he's going to blame Russia and the war in Ukraine for the supply chains and the prices?
Well, you know, even if he doesn't, that would be one thing that we could just say right now. You don't have the money. Canadians are going through a hell of a hard time. Manufacturing is not making enough money where they can put capital expenditures into their business to make new products that would be cheaper than what other countries could make them. So we're falling behind the learning curve here. And at the same time, he's finding money to send to other countries to kill our brothers and our sisters.
Just look at his face. Rom, you want to say something?
I'm just amazed at how he just deflects. And
it's a skill.
He's very skilled. We got to give it up to him, man. He's extremely skilled.
Well, you know, he took improv, and the first thing with improv, agree with everything, you know. So they like say yes to everything, and that's how you deflect. You say yes, and
I think he's going to surprise us with the next excuse.
Okay, let's
Gentlemen, we got to watch what we say because he could freeze our bank accounts too. I mean, that's when the world woke up. That's when Canadians started to say, hey, that's nepotism. That's a narcissistic. Who does this guy think he is? Who? Just because we don't like his policies and his continuous lying in government and how it's affecting Canadian standard of living, which is diminishing quicker than the other nations in the world. And then what does he do? He locks down people's bank accounts.
He did a lot more than that. He locked down people too. But let's watch this.
Already, but the fact is they are going to get worse in the coming years because climate change is real. And yet the Conservative Party continues to stand against the climate action that we've been taking, stand against the investments that we're making to support families, to support first responders. They continue to stand against help for Canadians who are losing their homes, losing their families, losing their livelihood.
The Honourable...
Well, yeah, we talk about climate change being the next thing here all the time that will usher in 15-minute cities, which we also can talk about. And they're already turning, I think Paris is the next big city that's going to go become a 15-minute city because Macron is basically butt buddies with Trudeau. But climate change, man, like...
Used to be global warming, but that was disproven, so they had to come up with a new name. Now it's climate change. If the climate in the world doesn't change, then we're going to have a real problem. By the way, also scientists have brought it to the woke scientists, the information that they've proven that in Greenland, there was no ice several hundred years ago. There was no ice at all. That's why Greenland used to be called Vinland. They used to grow grapes for wine there. And the same thing that they did in northern parts of England. But, you know, it changes. And what they're spinning it is they're saying, imagine what could happen now if there was no ice in Greenland hundreds of years ago. And back then they had 50% less carbon in the atmosphere. That's how they're spinning this one.
Yeah. Well, more than that, we know for a fact that Earth is basically coming out of mini ice age. And as a matter of fact, there's evidence of northern Russia of settlements that was settled that would only make sense if the climate was much warmer. Vast settlements, enormous settlements with farming communities and everything where there's no farming now because of the shorter summer season and impossible to harvest certain produce. So they went into more like, you know, animal harvesting, which is unsustainable for large populations, what predominantly the northern Russia is predominantly empty because of that. But they find settlements that are much larger, which didn't make any sense at all. So they even have the geological and what's that? Not geological. What's the archaeological evidence? The fact that people used to settle in warmer. That also goes for Scandinavia, by the way, like the northern shore of Scandinavia. A lot more cities and everything else than before. Okay.
Leader of the
He's
opposition.
gonna have a heart attack.
Has he really sunk into the low of exploiting these fires for political gain to distract from his inflationary and high interest rate policies? It's come to that he's so ashamed of his economic policy and record.
I'm going to have to interrupt this.
Say it to his face.
I'm getting noise from both sides.
Finally.
I know you can handle it. You do that well. But what I need to have is I want to hear what's being said, and I'm sure both sides want to hear what's being said. I'm going to ask him to start from the top, please.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister has just lowered himself to the worst steps to try and distract from his disastrous economic record. He's now using the forest fires to change the channel. This is even lower than I would have expected from him. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are going to sit down tonight to discuss how they're going to move into a small apartment because they're going to have to give up their homes after his inflationary policies have driven up interest rates on Canadian mortgage holders who have record debt. Will the Prime Minister keep the promise he made 6 months ago to balance the budget and bring down inflation and interest rates before folks go broke?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I've answered that question a dozen times. And for the Leader of the Opposition to consider that the forest fires that are taking people from their communities and destroying their homes are a mere distraction and not top of mind for people from coast to coast to coast is shameful. But the fact of the matter is he doesn't have anything to say about that because he refuses to put forward any real plan to fight against.
Justin, we showed on our show a lot of evidence that the fires are man-made, and there's a lot of, even of your outlets like CBC show a lot of arson created even by firemen themselves. And now you try to, it is all theatrics. It is all, and he is, Rome, you're absolutely right. He's an amazing actor. And that's the only reason he's a prime minister, because he can do it with a straight face, zero consciousness. I don't think this guy has a soul. And as a matter of fact, if there's any clones out there, that's the one.
I sense panic though.
You sense panic.
I sense panic. He went from a good actor to, he's getting a little erratic right now. I've never seen him like this.
He must know he's near the end of his tenure. They're saying that he just changed all his ministers, MPs and ministers, to get ready for the next election. But I will go on the record right now and say he has no chance of winning the next election. And if he does, our democratic process here is just as crooked as what we saw 3 years ago in America.
If not worse.
If not worse.
It's climate change, and he does nothing but fight against our plan to fight climate change. If he has a better plan, let him say it, because we've been waiting a long time for it. But he has no plan to fight climate change.
God, Trudeau's going to explode.
Yes, while Canada is burning.
Holy...
Glenn, there is no plan to save climate change because there is no climate change, brothers and sisters. And we just covered it in the previous episode, and you just click back on one of the previous episodes where we showed you that the Nobel Prize winning scientist, the physicist, got IMF'd. Well, he was going to do the speech in IMF, but he made a statement saying that there's no climate change crisis. It's all political, and obviously they don't want to hear that. And Trudeau just screams a whole bunch of nonsense that he's paid to do so by us, unfortunately. And I'm not even want to watch the rest of this video because we know where it's going. It's just a lot more gaslighting and everything else. But Rome, I mean, I don't know, like how climate change in terms of like, wouldn't you want to, like me personally, guys, actually, it's a discussion. Let's make a little comment out of this.
Yeah.
I mean, we live up north. For Canadians, climate change is a welcome thing if it's a global warming. Like, I want South Shore to be gone and this to be an ocean, and like LaSalle to be like the ocean front. Glenn, your property will go in value dramatically. We actually have a full-blown summer with sandy beaches and, cocktails with umbrellas in them. You don't think that's a good idea?
You had Obama, telling everybody about, we're going to melt all the ice and the oceans are going to go up 6 feet and we're going to flood all these places. And, but yet, after Obama left the government in America, what did he do? Oceanfront properties, okay, because they never lose value.
You know why it's all a theater, guys? You know why this thing will... I can't buy into this because basically the climate change, they want us to, what the climate change is going to usher in is the green agenda. Green agenda meaning like you can't go anywhere because you live a large footprint, a carbon footprint, so you can't really breathe everywhere, you can't fart everywhere, and definitely can't drive your car. So 15-minute cities and other things, and it will also affect manufacturing. And every aspect of your life will be affected by that green agenda. And you know why they implemented it, brothers and sisters? Because somebody else told them. And that's not my words. Just listen to, what's her name? Tweaker herself, Chrystia Freeland.
What we are seeing right now is you can only have a strong economy if you are building a green economy. And the reason for that is the world's...
Hold on. Repeat that again. You can only have a strong economy if you have a green economy. What do you think? What do you think she means by that, Glenn?
She's talking out of both sides of her mouth because we don't have a strong economy as we're going so-called greener, but we're being left behind. And you get the emerging markets in the world; those nations, they're the ones who are coming up, taking the lead because. For every one coal plant they shut down in North America, they're opening up 9 in China. So how is that going to have an effect on the overall?
It's very simple. Governments are out here trying to play God. They're trying to play God with the earth. The earth is perfect. The earth is not going anywhere. The earth will kill off all of us before we destroy it. When we had the so-called pandemic, right? And there was lockdowns for a couple of days. Did you see the birds come out? Oh my God, the nature just flourished.
Yeah, the deer came back into the cities.
Oh my God, it just took back the earth to, you know what I mean? It came back to what it normally was. This right here, I'm not buying for 1 second, not even half a second.
So, but I'm still curious about her explanation, what she means by that. Let's listen.
Consumers, the people outside Canada who we depend on to buy the stuff we make, who we depend on to come visit our beautiful country, including this incredibly beautiful island, they are demanding that the world build a green economy. And so if
That's why you said it, Glenn, is garbage what she's saying, because everything we buy is from China, where everything's made with the power of coal plants and gas and oil and everything else. Nobody's buying stuff from Canada because Canada just doesn't produce anything, not because they don't produce with the green stuff.
And bless her heart, that little sweetheart south of the border, or Ocasio-Cortez, saying that one of the main problems is methane gas from animals. And you know what? These politicians like Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau, they should shut their traps, because there's more bullshit coming out of those mouths, and yet people just take it all in. They're the ones who are adding to the global warming with all the crap that's coming out.
That's pretty clever.
People want to be lied to, man. More people than you think want to be lied to. They want to hear the nonsense. Hey, just make it make sense. Tell me a good story, please.
Well, Christian Freeland, Glenn, I agree with you on this, but first of all, nobody watches this, and whoever watches this, then definitely it's a way smaller population now. I'm talking about like whatever channels are, but I don't understand. Like, you can't be a human and go with a straight face day to day and make those presentations knowing everything you're saying is bullshit. There's no way. Like, I don't know. Like, you have to have zero consciousness or negative consciousness, or you got to be straight up evil. Or no soul or alien. Maybe that's the alien thing that we need to disclose. I don't know. Let's watch. It's a short video. Let's watch.
Or you know your audience.
Oh, that's true too. Let's watch the rest of this video.
PEI wants to keep on attracting tourists. If it wants to be a tourist destination, the best policy for PEI tourism is building a green Canadian economy, a green PEI economy. And I have to say, failure.
She doesn't sound convincing. she's not even being a politician. Like, when Justin was streaming in the House of Commons, he was actually projecting whatever power and energy was supposedly behind him. She's afraid to say whatever the next word is going to come out of her mouth.
And is it just me, or is she talking like she's like 14 years old, 12 years old? The way she talks, you know, this is a politician. You're the finance minister of country. In other words, you're the
leader.
Yeah, the one who runs the financial department of the country.
She talks like a high school teacher or grade school teacher. No,
this is what happens when you're forced to push an agenda that you don't really believe. She didn't fully buy the ticket, and she has to sell it.
She accepted the check.
One of the things you said, Big Guy, was that most people won't watch what we're showing or what we watch. That is the problem. This is the reason why the Trudeau and the Liberals can get away with all these shenanigans, because the average person doesn't show any interest to want to know what's going on in the macro. They're all in their little micro bubbles, and they just want to be cuddled and you know, everything to be as easy as possible. Yeah. And they don't want any conflict. They don't want to realize that things aren't that good. And this is why this government is able to get away with so much. Okay? And for the problems that most people are going to have, like, let's say, real estate. You know, a person gets pre-approved for, let's say, a $700,000 mortgage. So they have to get a house that the mortgage is going to be $699,000. You couldn't leave a little bit of leeway for yourself, you know, a plus or minus 10%, just in case things happen to change. So I have to put a lot of the responsibility back on Canadians. We voted for them. We, not in as in me or you or you. You know, Canadians voted for him, and now they're allowed to get away with so much. Why? Well, because we're a little bit dormant at the wheel here. And then when we hit the wall, we're going to say, oh, well, what happened? Oh, it wasn't our fault.
Let's finish this.
To have a climate plan is actually the death knell for the Canadian economy. People will not want to buy the stuff we make in Canada if we are not making it in a green way. People will not want to visit our country.
Who said that? Where's that study? Where's that statistic? You know, people don't buy anything from Canada. What Canadian product do we make that the world buys, other than oil?
Wheat. Oh, we make a few things here where we could be so much better. That in lies the problem. We're just doing enough as not to fall off. That's not a way to prominence and succession, to succeed in your life.
Timber itself, right? That's like
The
green
big
gold, right?
The biggest forest in the world. It's not the Amazon forest. It's the Boreal forest here. You know, we have the most fresh water in the whole world. The Canadian Shield has left us flush with all kinds of rare earth minerals. We have so much. We have very fertile farms in the south part of Canada. We're easily accessible by ships on both sides. We're very fortunate to be here. Yet these people are going to rob us of our fortunes right in front of our eyes. And people are going to say, who knew?
Oh, we did.
If they do not see that we are energetically embracing the green transition, they'll go to places that are embracing that.
Stop lying.
So I really believe
You know how I know she's
very,
lying?
very strongly
She's twitching.
that
That's her
our
tell.
green policy is an economic growth policy.
Excellent.
What we are
She
seeing
twitches all the time, champ. She got like nervous Irvis.
Is she nervous service or is it drugs, Glenn? What do you think that is?
Well, sometimes, you know, you look. You know, I worked in the clubs, and there was some people who were taking drugs, and you'd look, and they okay, you know that they're on the white powder. But sometimes when you look at Chrystia here, that's something, she's on something. I don't know what that is, but maybe she takes medication. She doubled up that day.
We'll have a video of her doing this. I don't know if I can do the sound. Will the sound do anything?
Kate, can I tell you about our efforts to support Ukraine facing potential Russian invasion?
Glenn, is that cocaine, Glenn? What is that? Some kind of drug, right?
Or lack thereof.
Oh, lack thereof. Yeah. Rome, explain. What do you think that is?
You know, sometimes the body just takes over when you need something or when you're dependent on something and you no longer have control until your body, because remember, everything in your body is extremely smart and knows what to do to make you react to go get the fix you need. And that looks pretty similar to that.
That's something affecting her nervous system for sure. It's
sure.
like she's not in control of her nervous system.
Or maybe she's some kind. Can we give her a break and say like she has some kind of disorder?
It might be. It might be.
Intermittent.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't want to make fun of her for twitching because what if she does? Maybe she is like Rome said. Maybe it is Michael Fox. Was it Michael Fox?
Michael J.
Fox, right?
Yeah,
Maybe
poor fellow, you know.
Poor fellow. In light of everything that is happening right now with economics, where does Prime Minister go?
Off to PEI for another hoo-hoo parade.
Okay, let's watch this. We have a video to cover that.
Smaller parade, more community grassroots parade that he's been in, and it was really an honor to have him down here with us. So during the last election, provincial election, we had some conversations around kind of what parties were doing to be more inclusive, both within their own party structure, but also with what changes they're making in government. And we put that kind of message out there to encourage them to be maybe a little bit better of allies more frequently, not just at the Pride Parade. And we've been really, met with a lot of warm reception, so you would have seen a lot of politicians participating, but maybe a little bit different than you would have seen in the past. A little less party color, a little more pride.
Pride is important every year, really.
particularly as it's a celebration of people being able to be and live their authentic selves and in a place of liberation.
Glenn, the question to you, question to the panel here, actually, to all of us here. Can you live your authentic self in a Canadian environment as is right now, according to the legacy media, or you are a microaggressor, possibly a Nazi, or definitely some kind of domestic terrorist thingy?
Well, if you're against the woke agenda, in other words, you're rising up and saying, okay, enough, this is going a bit too far. There's other much more important, pressing issues in Canada right now. But if you go, like, for example, here you're watching the Prime Minister of Canada, as Canada is burning, as the mortgage rates are increasing exponentially fast, as we just watched Pierre Poilievre show in the House of Commons. This guy has the time to go around to pride parades, and this one in PEI doesn't look like it's a home run success either. There's not a whole lot of people there.
I think that's a pretty conservative structure there with PEI, because they have to be self-sufficient for a long time. They can't rely on the rest of the Canada. They only survive because of the tourist industry. What's up, Rob?
I think he has to touch that parade, because that might be his core audience.
This is the only audience.
Yeah.
At this point, I think that's the only
He
audience.
cannot win nobody else over, so he has to keep entertaining his support.
It's also part of the forced behavior, right? This is what he has to do by default. This is his duty, or as a member of the G7 and the World Economic Forum and whatever else what is he else member of? Everything, I guess, at this point. Okay, do we want to watch the rest of this? It's just 10 seconds.
I think particularly why it feels important for this year is because we certainly have seen a rise of emboldened hate and bigotry happening locally and across Turtle Island. So I think particularly for our 2S LGBTQIA plus youth, this might be the first time that they're really seeing this kind of hatred and bigotry on such a large...
Okay, just Glenn,
yes.
Rephrase it. What you just said, rephrase it in the normal language.
Well, I don't...
Okay, I'll do it.
You do it.
I'll do it. People are pushing back because they're sick and they understand what you're doing is you're attacking the children. And that's the way to destroy the nuclear family. And that's what people are waking up to. But in her words, she says, oh, this hate because little Johnny cannot cut his penis off at the age of 12 without telling his parents because librarian told him you're a girl, or vice versa, Yeah. I'm not going to go into horrific details in a pretty X-rated Rome. What's up?
It's chess, not checkers. It all comes down to population control. Because little Johnny, once he cuts off whatever he want to cut off and becomes Janet, he can't reproduce.
Man, you just canceled that show on YouTube.
Jesus.
One thing about the video, Trudeau, he looks so much happier there at a parade than he does working in
the Parliament, right?
At Parliament. Like there, he looks a little flustered and frustrated, but look, he's at his... There he's at his
and he's wearing
happiest.
His white pants, don't spill the coffee, Trudeau.
Large scale, to show up and show that youth that hate might be loud, but love is certainly louder, and there's so many more people that are in support of our community than against it. The best way to do that is to gather in a space like this to celebrate Pride through a parade.
Can you address Anita as a sweetheart without that getting offended? So. Sweetheart, because you look like of female origin. Nobody's against you or against your community. We are against you actually sexualizing our children and brainwashing our children with your ideology, saying that's okay to be Janet when you're Johnny. That's what we're against. We're against that. We're not against you making adult choices for whatever reason. So no, we are not afraid. We're not homophobes. We're actually all brothers and sisters, and we accept you for who you are because you are still our creation and you are brothers and sisters of ours. So we kind of love you by default because we are all one big family. So yes, there's no hate here. Glenn, you want to say something?
Well, you said the ideology. I would say it's the idiotology. You know, today what's going on is we have too much empathy. Not only are we trying to feel with the other person, but we want to experience that feeling too. And we're taking it on personally. Whereas we used to be a population of sympathy. We would, you know, feel sorry for the other person, but we don't want to be in that same position also. So I would argue today that we have to go back, to get back to the sympathy part, we have to go the exact opposite of empathy and go into apathy. In other words, not having feelings, not showing the feelings, shut it down for a little while. So we can come back to a sympathetic state where that seems to make the world go around a lot better. And I believe the trajectory or the way to get that is going to come through the hard times that unfortunately this liberal government has done their job to make what's coming here in Canada to the average Canadian in the very near future.
So there's green agenda, right? Green agenda is the solution to economy. We just watched the show, the whole show. We're going to close with this little video. And they're saying green agenda is the solution to save the economy. And again, that's also talking out of two corners of their mouth, whoever they are. And whoever says that the green agenda is the solution to everything, specifically to climate change. In my heart, I'm an environmentalist. You know, I do remember when we switched to plastic bags and now we switched back to the, paper bags. I don't want to see plastic floating in the oceans where I swim. I want to drink clean water without being tainted. I want to eat clean food. But it also goes for everything, including GMOs and all the chemicals and pesticides and all this other stuff they put in it, including all kinds of antibiotics into our animals that we harvest for our food. But also, when they talk about green agenda, they talk about what? They talk about solar, they talk about wind, they talk about electric vehicles. We understand why it is. It's inching you close towards 15-minute cities. But that argument is so easily destroyed. We have an example here of the councilwoman, and it looks like she's a woman, in somewhere in England, I would say maybe Colchester, and she destroys the whole green agenda in 2 minutes. Let's watch this video really quick.
Good evening. I've been a supporter of green energy and a keen environmentalist since my 20s. My office is solar powered, so I was mortified to discover that a single lithium mine causes millions of tons of waste every year laced with sulfuric acid and radioactive uranium, polluting the water supply for 300 years, not to mention the unacceptable human costs with child labour to mine cobalt. When I researched which solar panel to purchase, I did not for 1 minute consider it would be made by people trapped in razor wire enclosed labour camps, being exposed to large quantities of quartz dust which causes silicosis. Please note that the Ethical Consumer Organisation report that it is hard to avoid forced labour in the solar panel supply chain. Wind turbines, which last about 20 years, consume a colossal amount of resources and energy to manufacture and install, not to mention the blight and bird kill. They require diesel engines to start them up and then gallons of oil to lubricate, and they can't readily be recycled. Solar panels are also extremely difficult to recycle, costing more than the production of the panel. And lithium batteries pose steep challenges too. Add to that the human suffering, which we've all unwittingly been part of just by owning a laptop or mobile phone, which is minimal compared to what's required for an EV or solar farm. These so-called green or ethical solutions aren't solutions at all. Just very good marketing from the $1.5 trillion a year climate change industry. That's $4 billion a day, by the way. None of us can undo what's already been done, but what we can all do is make sure this doesn't escalate exponentially with fleets of unnecessary EVs and acres of solar farms eating up our precious farmland. Good evening.
And here you go, brothers and sisters. This is how we're going to close the show. Everything you hear on TV, everything you hear from your governments right now, well, maybe not all the members of the government. There are still some people like this lady and Pierre Poilievre, and there's few people in European Parliament and some other governments, which usually you don't hear those people, especially if you watch Legacy at all. So continue to watch Alex Sass show here at the Glen Zone. And if you guys have anything to do, please share the show, because we are shadow banned on sources like YouTube. And you can also find us on Rumble and Spotify's and Apple Casts and everywhere else, iTunes, anywhere else you can search for. We are everywhere. And you can listen to us, watch us, and share us, because, you know, we are all brothers and sisters, and these need to be heard. And we're here to discern. Glenn, what's up?
Yeah, I just wanted to finish off with a truth news flash, and the truth's going to hurt. We have more people in working and sexual slavery today than we've ever had in the history of humanity on the planet. Okay? So when we're thinking that we're do-gooders and we're doing what's best for the planet, and everything is better here in your little world, it's because you don't really know the truth. You take everything that the mainstream media feeds you, and you become a glutton with it, and you just believe it all, because the truth, well, you don't want to know the truth. That's not a way to live.
Let's just stop. There's so many problems going on. The green wave, this wave, that wave. The actual green wave is doing worse to the earth than we're actually on the path of doing. Just stop. Everybody. Don't pull me this way. Don't pull me that way. Let's just stop. I'm telling you, the earth is a perfect place. The earth will regulate itself. We're just messing it up.
Perfect messages to finish the show with. See you in the next one, brothers and sisters.